Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Rono, Mr. Hoven, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Inhofe, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Jones, Kane, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Leahy, Mr. Lee, Mrs. Leffler, Mr. Manchin, Mr. Markey, Mr. Morrow, Ms. McSally, Mr. Menendez, Mr. Merkley, Mr. Moran, Ms. Markowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Paul, Mr. Perdue, Mr. Peters, Mr. Portman, Mr. Reed, Mr. Risch, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Romney, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Rubio, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Sass, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Shelby, Ms. Sinema, Ms. Smith, Ms. Stabenow, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Tester, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Toomey, Mr. Udall, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Ms. Warren, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young, Senators voting in the affirmative: Alexander, Barrasso, Blackburn, Blunt, Bozeman, Braun, Burr, Capito, Cassidy, Cornyn, Cotton, Kramer, Crapo, Cruz, Daines, Enzi, Ernst, Fisher, Gardner, Graham, Grassley, Hawley, Hoven, Hyde-Smith, Inhofe, Johnson, Kennedy, Langford, Lee, Leffler, McConnell, McSally, Moran, Murkowski, Hall, Perdue, Portman, Risch, Roberts, Romney, Rounds,
That should be it.
Rubio, Sass, Scott of Florida, Scott of South Carolina, Shelby, Sullivan, Boone, Tillis, Toomey, Wicker, Gion. Senators voting in the negative: Baldwin, Blumenthal, Booker, Brown, Cantwell, Cardin, Harper, Casey, Collins, Coons, Cortez Masto, Duckworth, Durbin, Feinstein, Gillibrand, Harris, Hassan, Heinrich, Hirono, Kane, King, Klobuchar, Leahy, Manchin, Markey, Merkley, Murphy, Murray, Peters, Rosen, Sanders, Schumer, Shaheen, Sinema, Smith, Van Hollen, Warner, Warren, Whitehouse, Wyden. Mr. Menendez, no. Mr. Schatz, no. Mr. Reed, no.
So the roll call, I don't have the vote total on that, so I'm going to look. I thought I had it. I don't know the actual vote total, so I'm trying to find that right now. I didn't count, and I was upset that Breitbart didn't have a total on there, but I couldn't find a C-SPAN. Couldn't find a C-SPAN feed, so that's kind of the problem there. Because typically they have a scoreboard, and I guess Breitbart doesn't. They weren't prepared for that, I guess, but whatever. If anyone knows the vote total, go ahead and put that in the comments, please. That'd be awesome.
Ms. Stabenow, no.
Okay, so she was just confirmed, so the votes obviously came through. I don't have a total yet. So, okay, I thought I counted 52. That's right. So the confirmation vote is 52-43.
Mr. Bennett,
All right.
no.
The confirmation vote is 52 yay, 43 nay. That's a pretty good number because she was very popular. And I think they understand that Trump's going to get reelected and there's going to be hell to pay if you don't vote for him. Because, I mean, the coattails that's going to come down if they don't vote for her could be harsh, especially in some of these senators in tough races. So, yeah, 52-43. It's pretty good. So Twitter's on fire right now. Congratulations.
Mr. Jones, no.
So I'm going to mute this for now because we know the score of it. Because these are just the Democrats, their nay votes. So I'm going. this was a very spontaneous live feed. I thought I'd do it because it's historic, and I wanted some documentation for it. So thanks to you guys for coming on. I wanted to do something about the polls. I'm going to give you something going on today with what's going on with the polls, but it's going to be a lot of it from memory. And I don't have a lot of information for you in terms of actual numbers there, but I'm going to do my best and give you the gist of it and how President Trump's looking on the ground and some of the key things that we're seeing. Today was a fascinating day, totally fascinating day. And I have to get off. You have a hard stop here at 8:30, so I probably won't go that long, but we'll see. And I'm going to mute this guy here. And what I want to see is the swearing-in ceremony at the White House. Supposedly, that's going to happen at 8 o'clock. But it's 8 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock now. And once Trump swears her in, she's going to be ready to roll. So it'll be first thing she takes, hopefully, is the court case in Philadelphia with the 3-day count where the people in that county can find the votes they need to steal the election. So that's hopefully that would get shut down. And hopefully this whole thing with the vote by mail, this whole scheme they're trying to do, basically to run them up, and then absorb the impact from the Trump voters that are come and the independent voters are going to come and vote for Trump on election day. And then after that, extend the vote by mail count as long as possible. You know, they'll find a dump truck somewhere in an alley with 100 million votes in it. And so, oh yeah, this, you know, and just all these 100 million votes just happen to be for Biden. That kind of stuff. And limit that time frame to as small as possible. And that's what it's all about, is keeping this election as clean as possible. And that's the goal. And so that's why we need someone like Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court. Because even though we had a majority in theory with Judge Roberts, he wasn't really voting for us on the key critical issues. And he would deviate from the Constitution. And so we needed some insurance, because I guarantee you one thing: if it came down for one vote to determine whether or not Joe Biden goes to the White House, or hold on, it's here. Hold on, turn this on.
To be an associate justice of the Supreme Court of the United States is confirmed.
Oh, 58-48. Okay, 52-48. That's the wrong number. This is the wrong tweet I had here. That's wrong. You can't trust Twitter, guys. Sorry. They literally had 58-42. Yeah, I'm about to say that didn't sound right. All right. Well, that's the vote. All right, so I'm gonna drop this feed. And I'm gonna see if I can come on and do something else with that. I'm gonna see if I can find the feed that actually has. See if I can find the feed that actually has the swearing in. If I can do that, it'd be awesome. Let's see if I can do that. So anyway, my name is Kyle, guys. Thank you for coming on. This is a spontaneous. I didn't even plan this at all, but I thought I'd do something because I said in my video prior to this I would do something on Monday. I did a live session where I went over the polls, where we are in terms of the election, the early voting, and the vote by mail, and how that was looking. And so I have information for you simply at a high level. I don't have time to go into some of the numbers, but I will try and get to some of that. But let's start with North Carolina. North Carolina was something that I was looking at heavily. It appears that North Carolina, Trump is doing well again in that the black turnout is a few percentage points down, that the Democrat early voting is down from 2016, that the youth vote is down from 2016, that you have people who are the black turnout is also down by a couple points, and the overall is down. And so I don't have any numbers in terms of how the Republicans are doing at this point with North Carolina, but it looks to be more and more likely that Trump will carry North Carolina by at least a couple points. He carried it by 3.8 in 2016, somewhere in there. And looks like North Carolina is it's going to be a lean Trump in that category. So in terms of, let's look at Ohio. Ohio's been pretty much a done deal for almost months now. No one really wants to say anything about it, but Trump has stopped even going to Ohio now. He's focusing on other states, and he's pulled his main Ohio point person to come out of there to go into Pennsylvania. So Ohio, like we said before, it looks really good. Arizona, it also appears to be really good for Trump, and the voter registration there is through the roof. They have a confirmed 96-mile long line of parades that happen out there, truck parade. The enthusiasm in Arizona is ridiculous. I believe he's going to actually go out. No, who's it going to go there? I believe Gilbert, Arizona. There's going to be an appearance there as well. I'm not sure who's going there. But I have friends who live in Gilbert, Arizona, so that's why I mentioned that. So the next day I want to talk to you about is going to be Pennsylvania. Okay, Pennsylvania. Now I saw a poll where Trump is up 3 in Pennsylvania. I don't have the actual number for that poll. Sorry, I don't have any information for you guys. I'm not really prepped for this at all. But I'll come back maybe later tonight and give you some information on this. But Pennsylvania, but I don't believe he's up 3 in Pennsylvania. First of all, with the potential fraud in Pennsylvania, that's going to be a big issue anyway. So, hold on a second, guys. Hold on. Sorry about that. My son actually got his game wasn't working, so he was having a fit. So anyway, sorry about that. So, okay. Thank you, Tina, for that. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that contribution. Really appreciate that, Tina. It's awesome. So I'll send you something special on that with thank you. And in fact, I'll even give you a subscription to our membership site if I can figure out how to do it without having you sign up on your own. But YouTube has its own way of doing it. So we'll figure if I can do that and get you membership there. So anyway, thanks again, Tina. So where's I at? So Pennsylvania, again, the corruption there is going to be an issue. If we can get the counting down to a normal and monitored process, that would help out a lot. If Trump can gain 24% of the Philadelphia market, then he wins Pennsylvania very easily. If you look back at 2016, one of the reasons why I knew Trump was going to win the election was because there was no day of, there was no early voting, I believe, in the 2016. It was just you showed up and you voted. And I knew for a fact that people were not going to stand in line, a long line, for Hillary Clinton. So this year is a little different. The governor's different. I believe his name is Wolf, and he's making it really difficult. And they're having ballots show up all over the place. So Pennsylvania, I'm still going to leave that in the toss-up category with a slight lean to Trump because of what we're seeing with the voter registration and with the potentiality of Western Pennsylvania coming out strong, and as they did in 2016. Also, Biden's comments dealing with fracking really hurt him big time in Pennsylvania, and that's something that people are taking notice of. So the next state is, we talked about Florida. Florida right there. Interesting thing about Florida, and this is what I know the most about. They've been really straightforward in their numbers coming out. And so when Florida first had their early voting, the vote by mail numbers were coming in by the droves, but Democrats were pretty much running the numbers up hugely. The initial thought in Florida was for the Democrats to have about 700,000, maybe 650,000 lead in early voting going into election to have a chance at beating Trump statewide. Well, they were on the way to doing that. In fact, we were worried. We were like, okay, at this pace, they're going to pass that number big time. So, but then something happened. Then all of a sudden, there's something called in-person early voting. And what happened was that Republicans were coming out in droves, relentless droves. And they were taking that, at that time, it was about a 500,000 vote lead and dwindling it down by the hour, 5,000 an hour. 5,000, it was just constant, continuous for 2 straight weeks, essentially. And now we're at the point where the Republicans have done such a good job that their cap now, which used to be about 700,000, is now about 800,000. And they're not going to meet that number. They're just not. And one other thing that the Democrats were looking to do, they have this thing called Souls to the Poll. It's where they have outreach, where they have college students and they have people in the community go out to Black neighborhoods, Latino neighborhoods, and bus people to the polls. They rent buses and bring them in and, basically take their hand and make them vote, essentially. So that was a big thing that gets the vote out for Democrats. But the thing is that because of the lockdowns, because the Democrat Party has pretty much scared their base crazy about Corona, that they pushed insanely heavily about vote by mail. And they were anticipating that to overwhelm Republicans and that they would just win, in a landslide. Well, that's not happening. In fact, it's become an absolute disaster for them in Florida. Florida is phenomenal. The more information I see about Florida, the crazier it gets. If you look at Dade County, Miami-Dade County, the numbers of the Black community are way down, and the in-person voting, I believe in Miami-Dade County, is still way ahead of Democrats. Statewide, the Republicans are leading Democrats by hundreds of thousands of votes in in-person voting. They just crossed 300,000, I believe, just today in in-person voting. And it's just phenomenal what's going on. And if you want another example, if you look at Palm Beach County, that, not just to mention in-person early voting, I'm talking about early voting. Republicans have cut the lead to, as of 2 hours ago, to 888 votes. It's probably closer than that now. And so Florida is pretty much looking like it's going to be a safe thing for Trump. And here's the interesting thing. No president has ever won the White House without winning either Florida or Ohio. And right now, Ohio is pretty much a done deal for Trump, and Florida is looking like a done deal for Trump. So right now, it's going to come down to Pennsylvania. Biden absolutely has to win Pennsylvania. Now, I don't like saying that because, like in 2016, people say, well, Trump's got to win Florida. He's got to win Florida. And all through the night, they're saying he's got to win Florida. Well, you know what? He didn't have to. If you take Florida away in 2016, he still wins. So he didn't need Florida. So I'm hesitant to say that Biden needs Pennsylvania. But if you want to compare 2016 to 2020, then I would say pre-election, Pennsylvania is Biden's Florida. If you compare that to 2016. So he's putting all his eggs in that basket. And if Trump can win that, it's a done deal. Let's go to Wisconsin. And this is all by memory, guys. If I'm saying anything wrong, put it in the comments and I'll make a correction. So let's go to Wisconsin. You have something called the WOW counties, which is the eastern part of the state, southern eastern part. It's the most red county. 3 of them. It's Washington, and 2 of them have like Native American names. I can't name. I don't even want to try to pronounce them. But there's 3 counties. It's called WOW because it's W-O-W. Washington is the other W. Anyway, these are the most Republican counties in that state. You have to win it. McCain crushed these counties. It's very Republican establishment, right? So Trump only got around 65% of those counties last time. Now he's cranking it up to like 78% in those counties. So it looks like he's won over those conservatives that are more establishment based. And so, and if you look around the country anyway, if you look at just general strongholds of where Trump did well, he's up in all those areas. In all the areas that he did well in 2016, he's doing even better now. I mentioned this many times before, but it's something I got to keep saying is that those 200 counties, those nearly 200 counties that going back to 1984 in the Rust Belt, these counties went to a Democrat by a margin of 20 points each election cycle, going back to Dukakis, going back to Mondale, to Kerry, to Obama twice, to Clinton twice, to Hillary. Well, not to Hillary. It stopped at Hillary. At Hillary, those counties, which is one of the reasons why Hillary didn't even campaign hardly in the Rust Belt. I mean, she a little bit, but I don't believe she went to. I don't believe she went to Michigan. Did she go to Michigan? I don't believe so. But or Wisconsin. Nevertheless, that was a state that she was supposed to win. Well, those counties flipped for Trump at a margin of 20% the other way, a 40-point switch in basically 4 years. And that's the kind of thing we're seeing. That's what we call an alignment. And that is looking like we're going to see that happening as well. So all across the board, the numbers we're seeing, it looks really, really good. Minnesota, I'm hearing, is looking very good, whereas before it was more of a toss-up lean, maybe Trump, maybe Biden. I don't have a lot of information off my memory about Minnesota, but from what I've seen, it doesn't appear to be bad for Trump. Trust me, if it's a bad number, I'd mention it to you because I remember it. There's so much good news coming in on the ground that I just don't, it's hard to take a lot of it in. And so I think I mentioned Arizona. And let's talk about New Mexico, which probably is probably going to be out of play. But the comments about the fracking seem to have changed things out there. And so if Trump were to make a trip out to New Mexico, then they feel they can get it. If he does not make a trip to New Mexico, I'm going to say it's going to be pretty much leans Democrat. So he's put out the schedule earlier. He's already said he's going to. He's actually going to go to Nebraska to go over the 2nd district in Nebraska to kind of shore that up. People are saying, well, why is he going to Nebraska? Is he going to lose Nebraska? No, he's probably going to Nebraska to shore up that 2nd district, which is kind of one of those. It leans Republican, but you kind of want to show up to kind of get your organization activated. See, what people don't understand, I'll mention this real quickly. I don't hear anyone talking about this. So I'm going to mention things I don't hear anybody talking about. I've run campaigns. I understand this stuff at a better level than most people. Not saying much, but I have run a couple of campaigns at a semi-statewide level, state house level. And so what these things do, when the president shows up in a town, if it's strategic, because their campaign manager, they have a strategy. Okay, they know what they want to do. They have what they call internal polling. They pay their internal private companies to go out and do their own polling, and it's just shared within their own group. So they kind of have a feeling of what's happening on the ground, where they need to be, what their campaign strategy is. The campaign strategy is everything. It's their Bible. It tells you, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. We're going to attack here, we're going to deflect here, we're going to do this. And everything is postured and tailored from your messaging to your stump speeches, where you're going, why you're going, who you're talking to, what coalitions you're dealing with. All of that all comes together and is all the mouthpiece of the person, which in this case, the candidate, which is President Trump. It is his job to push the plan forward, to be the plan. But there's so much more behind that. And so when he goes to a state like, when he goes to a state like Nebraska, okay, 2nd district, what happens when Air Force One, well, actually before Air Force One hits the ground, here's what happens. You have if it's a Republican governor, it all trickles down from there. So the highest Republican of that state is the man, okay, or the woman, whether it be the, if it's a Democrat state, then it's going to be probably the GOP head, or maybe a senator or whatever, who can have time to deal with the campaigning. Most of those people are going to be campaigning, so it's going to be the person who's the highest level in the state who's not campaigning. So either it's the GOP head of the state, or it's going to be the governor, or who knows. So, or mayor, because that's typically off-year elections, so they can kind of do it as well. So the plan really is they hit the ground and they activate. Everyone has their marching orders. They go out and they canvass. They prep people up. They get fundraising in place, and the media gets in place, and all this messaging goes out. And so when the president hits, it's like a time bomb. It's like an explosion. And we don't see that on TV. We just see the president come and go. But after he leaves, so much more is going on. So every trip he makes, they're activating people. They're signing people up. They're getting volunteers. They're getting signs to go out the streets. They're telling people to go out and do your thing. Rona, who is the GOP chair, I forget her last name. I'm sorry. But she is absolutely crushing it. She tweeted that they have 2.5 million volunteers, 2.5 million volunteers, and over 150 million contacts. Is that right? Maybe that's not right. Doesn't sound right. A lot of contacts. So 2.5 million and maybe it's 150 million. I don't know. But it's a lot of people that they've gone out and armed. It's the biggest campaign it's the biggest grassroots movement in the history of this country, surpassing Obama's movement in 2008. And so that's what happens. And if you're organized enough and you have a charismatic person who can lead that charge, then it can just explode. And so we're seeing with President Trump, because he has that charisma, he has that credibility, he has that the it factor, that he's the perfect person, the perfect vehicle to push forth this new GOP party. I mean, we're so much different than we were back under McCain, back under Romney, back under Bush. And I support those guys too. And that was the best we had. But the country's changing. And I think President Trump is the right person for this time. And the funny thing about it is he's actually more conservative than any of them. He doesn't have the nuanced speech to talk about policy. You know, he's not a policy wonk. He's not an ideologue. He's not someone like a Ted Cruz who could talk you under the table in terms of, you know, what it means for, top-down economics or Keynesian economics. He won't get into those kind of levels, because what he's dealing with is people, everyday people, blue-collar workers, moms. They used to be called soccer moms back in the day, and even minorities, because understand, look, President Trump is a cool dude, man. You got this, basically, he has 17 million subscribers, and he basically I can't say it. I mean, he totally dissed Biden in a way that was like shocking. And he left shockwaves around Instagram. So, and he's basically saying, look, I'm not down with Biden's tax plan. And so he really let him have it. And the Latinos, Hispanic community has really come out for Trump. So he's like a person for all people. And so we'll see. So right now, I think, one more thing. Let me just talk about this. So the polls today, Rasmussen actually had President Trump, +1 in the national poll. 2 weeks ago, he was -12 at Rasmussen. And that to me was bad. It was bad. And I think part of it was because they oversampled Democrats. They had Trump's approval at that time at 71%, which is why that number went down. The following week, it went back up to 81%, and it went back up 10 points. So he was back within like 3 or 4. So that may have been an outlier there, but he seems to be back on track there. So if you combine the Rasmussen poll, the +1, you look at the Trafalgar Group's polls, states polls, these are polls that aren't voter polls or opinion polls. They go out and look at the vote counts. They go and look at the registration. They go look at exit polling, hard data that's happening right now, and they project who's going to win. And Trump looks fine in all those areas. Again, I'm not prepared to make a prediction yet, but I am leaning heavily on a strong Trump victory. What leads me to be hesitant is simply the unknown of the COVID. We just don't know with this vote by mail. It's the first time in history something like this has happened. So that's what's kind of leading me back to pull back from me to being utterly overly excited. If this was a regular election, I would have called Trump, a week ago, 4 days ago. I mean, all the momentum is in his favor. And so if I can think that's all I have what's going on today. Let me see if you have any comments, because I don't want to just leave you guys out there. I do appreciate everyone hanging out with me. Let me see here. Okay, we got, let's start with some comments here. I'm seeing a bunch of remarks about Chuck Schumer. What did he do or say this time? Chuck Schumer, I do not know. Oh, can someone tell me when that's happening? I'm gonna see if I can get that feed over there. I'm gonna see if I can find it right now. Just give me a second. See if I can find it. Why y'all doing that? Let's see. Again, thank you, Tina, for that. That's awesome. That goes back into the coffers to help do more of this kind of stuff. Let's see. Well, I can't. I'm not gonna do what I'm doing live. That's gonna take too much time. It's not gonna be fair to you guys. So if it comes up, I'll do another feed. But I would love to see her streaming in. If not, I'll just do it later. Amy is in. Yes, she is. And look, guys, do not underestimate, or I'm sure you guys don't, just the impact of what happened here. I mean, here's the thing. We're in the middle of something that's really special in this country. And right now we're in the middle of it. We don't have the luxury of being outside of the moment and looking back on it and saying, oh, wow, wasn't that amazing? Right now we're in the middle of the storm, right? And so we don't know how it's going to end up. And so we can only suspect. So, but I'm going to project something a little bit here. I'm going to project something just a little bit here, and then I'm going to let you guys go. So let me see. The Dems like Stalin understand that those who vote decide nothing. Those who count to vote decide everything. Exactly. Dems are counting on fraud to win. We must get all out. Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that's keeping me hesitant because, who knows what these guys have in store. And I'm not trying to be paranoid, but my thought is on threefold. One, election fraud is pretty easy to detect if it's done in traditional fashion. Secondly, we have a Supreme Court justice on now that will help prevent any quote unquote tiebreakers that go on. They can stop that and hand the election over if they see inconsistencies. And lastly, the amount of enthusiasm for the Trump supporter, based on what you were just saying. If I say your name incorrectly, I apologize, Vincier. To your point, Vincier, that we need to get out and vote. And it's got to be so overwhelming that there's no amount of cheating that can take place without it being utterly obvious. Because what happens is in some areas, in some counties, in some states, what they call super voters, they call them, sometimes you hear 4x4 voters or people who voted every single time for the past 4 years, every single election cycle. They're called the trusted voters. Well, in many cases, in a lot of cases, most Republicans have not voted yet, up to a fourth, whereas Democrats up to 75% have already voted. And in some areas, all of their super voters have already voted. So to cheat when that happens is ridiculous because you say, okay, how can you have more people that need to vote than you have registered, right? So that kind of thing. So, and because we have the Electoral College, it's really more difficult to do that. I mean, you can run the numbers up in California, but who cares? You can win by 1 billion votes. You still only get 55. It doesn't matter. So they have to be really, really intricate. They have to really pick their spots in the battles. So we need to win the Wisconsin's by like 3 points. If we win Wisconsin by 3 points and win Florida by 3 points and win Ohio by 9 points, then there's nothing they're going to be able to do. Period. There's no amount of cheating. That's going to stop that. That's not going to be obvious because of the Electoral College. Thank God for that. Let's see here. Help prevent the steal of the Dems by voting this election. Yeah, great. Yeah, so let me go back to what I was going to say real quickly because I got to get off this thing here in the next. I have a hard stop in about 10 minutes. So, I'm gonna, this is kind of on the record because it's public, but and I don't want to sound crazy, but I'm a spiritual guy, right? And I see things, and I'll put it this way. The founding fathers saw, and the founding fathers saw something in the universe, and they called it providence. They weren't necessarily all evangelical Christians, but they were pretty much all believers in God, and whether he was actively involved in our daily lives, or was he the kind of God that kind of set the world in motion and kind of set back. One of the way, they were pretty much all spiritual of a Christian, Judeo-Christian principle. And most of them were Christians in the way we would see that people as being Christians. In other words, not deists, in other words. My point being is this. is that they all saw the hand of God in operation throughout his life. George Washington thought that he couldn't be killed. He was such a brave man that he thought that he was a man on a mission. He was destined that he could, like in the Battle of, I think it was Saratoga, I believe, where he basically, his army was frightened. They started retreating, and he basically rallied the troops. And then he ran his horse a couple times across the lines and got shot at a few times, missed him so much that, and they scared the living the daylights out of his army, encouraged them to fight because he had this sense of providence. And what do I mean by this? What am I saying? What I'm saying is I think God has his hands on this election. He has his hands on this country. I think no matter what happens, it's going to work out. But I think we're seeing it right now. If you look back on 2016 and looked at the news stories of what would happen, what Trump would say, and then something would happen right after that, like the shooting with Casey, or the night in where was it? In Vegas shooting, and the nightclub shooting that happened in the gay club there. I think it was in Florida. All right. Things happened before that. Trump had been talking about gun control. Gun control, how that was bad, and Second Amendment rights. He was talking about legal immigration, and things were happening across the border and it was just time after time after time, things in the media, in the news, just verified everything he was saying. It was just like, it couldn't just happen. And even today, you look back at the impeachment all the way to now, and dare I even say Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I'm not trying to be morbid or anything like that, but just sit back and look at it. It's almost as if God just has his hands in all of this. And so us being in the middle of all this is kind of hard to say, but we're going to look at this, 4 months from now and look back and see exactly how he worked in this. And it's going to be interesting to see. And we're going to look back and say, wow, it wasn't that incredible. And even further, I think we're going to look back on this presidency and say that President Trump was one of the greatest presidents ever to live. And we're going to put him up there with Lincoln. And I said that going back to 2016, not that he would be that, but that if he would able to accomplish the things on his list, that he would be the greatest president we've ever had since Lincoln. And he has absolutely done that. Who would have thought that President Trump would get the wall built? I had so many people telling me that there's no way President Trump was going to be able to get that wall built. Period. It's not going to happen. Conservatives. Oh, he's just saying just to get elected. Oh, yeah? Well, guess what? The wall is being built. I mean, just think about that. I mean, it's and here's the deal. Here's what's crazy about it. Trump got the wall built, but you know what? On his talking points, he's not even talking about it. He's done so much other stuff that the wall is kind of like, yeah, whatever. I got the wall built, whatever. Had any other person done that, that's all they'd be talking about. That'd be the only talking point they'd be talking about. Oh, yeah, what about the wall? Oh, what about the wall? No, Trump rarely ever mentions the wall. Have you noticed that? Because he's on to other things. And I'm telling you right now, this is the last thing I'll say, other than the questions. I'll do some comments here, some questions here. The last thing I'll say is that this impeachment and all of this, bringing out the base and bringing this party together, bringing blacks together, Asian Americans together, Jews together. You saw how in New York they were getting attacked with bricks and debris off the road, off the overhead passage. They were getting thrown on. He's bringing all these groups together: men, women, gays, Hispanics, the elderly, and he's built this coalition. And he's going to have the greatest second term of any president in this country, bar none. First of all, that's not hard to say, but no president really has had a good second term. No president that I know has ever had a really good second term. Even Reagan, he had his Iran-Contra deal going on there too. That was kind of a sore spot. But no president has really had a good second term. But because of what he did to President Trump in his first term, he's going to really do something special. I would say Clinton would have, but the Monica Lewinsky thing jacked him up. So anyway, guys, let me ask some questions. Let me get out of here. Let me see. I predict voter fraud. Let me see. Let me do it over here. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Yeah, this is happy birthday to Hillary Clinton. It's funny. They actually scheduled it on her birthday. So the voter fraud will show how truly corrupt the system has become when more votes than registered vote. Yeah, you know what? That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The voter fraud will show. Okay, MC. Amen. Susan Collins, what's up with her, man? What's up with Susan? She's gonna lose, man. That chick's gonna lose. And that chick out in Alaska, what's her name? McCluskey? You gotta go, man. They're an old dinosaur group, man. They gotta wake up with the times. And I think, yeah, Jan. You know what? And let's just talk about Hunter a little bit real quickly. I really gotta go, guys. I really gotta go. But the whole thing with Hunter and the whole China thing, how it's looking like China was going to blackmail this country, that they were going to get Biden in office and then hang all this stuff over his head, and some nasty stuff out there. I'm not even going to talk about it. And but somehow there's a group in China, a bunch of patriots that dropped the dime because they didn't want that happening, because they didn't feel that was right. And so whatever happened, whether that be Providence or not, we dodged a serious bullet, and hopefully we'll dodge an even bigger one come next Tuesday. So I'll keep you guys posted on what's going on in the election. If you go to my Parler account, the conservative take, the conservative take, it's on my description here below and the links below. You'll see that I'm posting stuff there all the time, and keep you up to date on the election and where things are going. But so far as I know, everything looks good. Trump looks good. Momentum's on the side. Looks like he's going to be reelected, and it looks like it won't be close. So we shall see. So Pedro, how you doing? Good to see you, man. Sorry about the philosophy midterms, man. I hope you did well in your midterms. Online train. I'm assuming it's online, right? Yeah, probably online. Okay, guys. So this is the conservative take. This was a spontaneous Amy Coney Barrett confirmation, kind of sort of election, kind of whatever we did. Live stream. So I appreciate everyone else. Thank you so much, Tina, for that contribution. I really appreciate that. It means so much to me that people would part with their hard-earned money to support someone like me, who's just trying to do his small part to get this country back on track. So with that, I got to go, guys. Hard stop. So take care. My name's Kyle again. Conservative Take. Please subscribe, like, tell your friends, and I'll talk to you guys next time.